When the world goes quiet, some voices still remain. Not every soul finds peace when the clock strikes 12. There are stories hidden in the shadows, whispers drifting between the living and the forgotten. Some stories linger, some souls don't leave. Welcome to Stillness After Midnight, where every silence tells a story. If you're drawn to the mysteries that stir after dark, the voices that echo when the world sleeps, subscribe now and join us as we listen to the souls who still have something to say, because in the stillness, the truth finally speaks. It didn't start with a dying child. That's what people assumed, because it made the story easier to swallow. A sick boy, a grieving mother, a famous man with a heart. Cue the lights, the headline, the standing ovation. But no, that's not where it began. Not now, not here. It began in a boardroom, under white lights, not hospital ones, with a calendar marked Q3 brand rebuild, with a team of image consultants and digital strategy architects, all sitting around a long glass table with my face on a presentation slide titled Resurrection Arc. I had just come off a scandal, not something career-ending, but enough to bruise the shine. A poorly timed tweet, a leaked party video, public fatigue, the kind of subtle rot that spreads in silence and steals momentum. I remember my agent leaning forward, her fingers laced, voice silky. What you need, Tyler, is redemption. The public loves a comeback, and nothing screams authentic like a child's tragedy. She said it like she was pitching a Netflix pilot. Another one added, "We found one. Local Nevada case. Kid needs a heart surgery. No one's covering it yet, but we can change that." And I, the good soldier of my own myth, nodded. The press conference was held 3 days later, a modest hotel ballroom dressed in banners of compassion. I stood at the podium in a charcoal suit, my hair tousled just enough to say approachable. The lights were warm, cameras focused, and Ethan Brooks's photograph, taken from a grainy hospital bed, was displayed beside me like a prop. A small, pale boy with thinning hair and eyes far too tired for someone who hadn't yet lived. He never asked to be part of this. But then, stories aren't always written with consent. Sometimes they're composed by men like me, men who've forgotten the weight of real things. I read from the script, the one we had polished the night before. Ethan's story moved me deeply. No child should have to fight alone. That's why I'm pledging today, publicly and personally, to cover the full cost of Ethan's heart surgery. No need for anyone else to donate. This child will live. We'll make sure of it. There was applause. One reporter even cried. And just like that, my resurrection began. Twitter exploded. Articles bloomed like wildflowers. Tyler Gray's Heart of Gold. Hollywood star steps in where government fails. I trended for 3 days. Netflix renewed our option. A studio executive called to say, "That speech, that's Oscar season energy." Meanwhile, Ethan's mother, Rachel Brooks, stopped checking the GoFundMe account. She stopped posting pleas, stopped answering calls, because she believed, as did the world, that a miracle had come. She believed in me. That's the part I can't forgive myself for. Back then, I didn't feel guilt. I felt momentum, the kind that burns like caffeine, the kind that blinds. We were already crafting the follow-up narrative. Tyler visits hospital room. My team discussed camera angles, gift basket contents, whether I should sit on the bed or stand beside it. Everything mattered, everything except the actual boy. When the hospital reached out, quietly, politely, to ask when funds would arrive, my assistant replied, "Soon." When Rachel left a voicemail, her voice raw, cracking, to ask for confirmation, we flagged it as low priority. When the deadline for surgery passed, I said nothing. Do you know how easy it is to ignore a dying child from the inside of a mansion? Easier than you think. Ethan was 400 miles away. No press followed up. No one questioned the promise. because the story already had a happy ending. And so, he faded. The surgery never happened. His condition worsened. Rachel tried again, calling, emailing, begging. No one answered. Because the cameras were no longer watching, Ethan Brooks died before sunrise on a Monday. I didn't know. Not that day. I was in Miami, being honored for humanitarian work in media. I smiled for photos, held a crystal award shaped like a flame, made a toast. To light, to love, to doing the right thing. There's a photograph of me from that night, wearing a white tuxedo, smiling so wide my teeth look fake, captioned, "An angel in Armani." I saw his name again weeks later. Someone tagged me in a now-deleted post. A woman had written, "My nephew died waiting. He believed in a man who never called back." I clicked through and saw Ethan's photo again. But this time, it wasn't framed in celebration. It was part of a funeral montage. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not guilt, not yet. Just a numbness. A pause. I should have said something, reached out, admitted the truth. But silence had already given me so much. So I said nothing. Again. It would have ended there. Should have ended there. But death has a strange way of echoing louder than life. A statue was built. Not by me, not by the family, by a charity group seeking exposure. They erected it in Liberty Plaza, a bronze figure of me mid-speech, eyes cast toward the heavens, a plaque beneath reading, "Champion of Children's Hearts." That's when the bleeding began. But no, not now, not yet. This isn't the time to tell you how the statue wept, or how a second child collapsed in front of it, or how the head turned toward a forgotten grave. That part comes later. First, you have to understand the foundation, how a life was used to polish an image, how applause can silence a scream, how I, Tyler Gray, held a promise in my hand and let it rot. You want to know how I fell? Why the headlines turned? Why I'm alone in a hotel room now, with one letter on the nightstand and nothing left in my name? It started here, with a boy who needed a heart, and a man who needed an audience more. Sometimes I still dream of him. Not the hospital Ethan, not the photo op Ethan, but a child I never truly met, sitting alone in a room he would never leave, drawing hearts with wings in crayon. I imagine he knew, that he felt the silence coming, that his mother sat beside him, whispering lullabies between tears. And I wonder, in his final breath, did he still believe I was coming? You'd think shame would begin with silence, a kind of slow rot, a withering away of sound. But for me, it started with applause. Not hesitant clapping, not polite tapping. No, I'm talking about the full-throated, camera-panning, spotlighted ovation that makes your ribs swell and your name taste like divinity. That's how I became the hero. Not when I decided to help Ethan Brooks, but when I performed the idea of helping. When I rehearsed it, delivered it, filmed it, packaged it for prime time. It was a Tuesday. I remember because they dressed me in a soft blue sweater. Soft, like empathy. Not black, too serious. Ooh. Not red, too bold. Blue was safe. Blue was trust. I sat across from Meredith Lane, America's sweetheart anchor. She smiled like someone who'd already read the script. And in a way, she had. The producers had everything ready. The photos of Ethan, the pre-cut montage of his story, hospital clips, the mother's tired face, even the shaky iPhone video where he said, "I want to run one day." There were violins under that clip, swelling, cinematic violins. That segment played. Then the cameras cut back to me. I kept my expression solemn, throat tight, eyes glassy. Not too much. Just enough. Then I spoke. "When I saw Ethan's story," I said, pausing just long enough to make it believable, "something in me just broke. I couldn't imagine a world where we let that boy suffer." I leaned forward, dropped my voice half an octave, let it tremble slightly on the word boy. That's why I'm not just speaking out today. I'm acting. I'll be covering Ethan's full medical expenses and ensuring he gets the surgery he needs. Immediately. I let the word immediately hang in the air. It made me sound decisive, urgent, heroic. Meredith looked at me with glassy eyes and whispered, "That's incredible, Tyler. Absolutely incredible." And then it came. The applause. Studio lights bounced off their palms like halos. Audience members nodded at me with open admiration, some even mouthing, "Thank you." Thank me? For what? For arranging a photo shoot of compassion? For turning a sick boy's life into a promotional reel? No one asked for receipts. No one asked for a date, a wire transfer, a hospital name, because I had already given them what they wanted, a spectacle of goodness. That's all it took. My phone vibrated off the table after the segment aired. Notifications, messages, sponsorship offers. The number of followers I gained in the first hour alone could have filled a stadium. One brand offered me an endorsement deal the same evening. "Your message aligns beautifully with our values of hope and human connection." Human connection, they said, as if I hadn't just exploited a child for clout. Even I believed it for a while. Later that night, we celebrated. Champagne, laughter, a toast to the comeback. I remember my manager, God, she was efficient, grinning as she recited numbers off her phone. Top trending in 12 countries. Twitter sentiment, 93% positive. You're a saint, Ty. A saint. And what was Ethan? A tool, a detail, a boy with a failing heart reduced to a soundbite and a charity quote. I should have said something then. Should have reminded everyone that nothing had been transferred, no surgery scheduled, no confirmation given. But I didn't, because in that moment I was golden, untouchable. And the myth of who I was felt so much better than the truth of who I had become. A week later, I got a handwritten letter. No return address. Inside was a crumpled photograph of Ethan. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "We still haven't heard anything. Please, please." It was from his mother, Rachel Brooks. I stared at it for a long time, then tucked it in a drawer beneath a stack of signed headshots. Out of sight, out of conscience. I told myself someone on the team would follow up, that it was being processed, that help was on the way. But none of that was true. We never sent the money, not because I didn't have it, but because I didn't make it real, because I assumed the illusion of goodness would be enough, because the applause had made me believe I was who they said I was. And somewhere in Nevada, a boy waited, and then stopped waiting. The world remembers the performance. They replay that segment in parody videos now, spliced with news of my downfall. I've seen them. The clip of me saying, "I couldn't imagine a world where we let that boy suffer," cut directly into headlines like, "Actor fails to deliver on promise. Child dies awaiting surgery." Cruel maybe, but accurate. And still, even now, after everything, people ask me why I did it. Why I'd promise something so sacred, then walk away. The answer is both simple and monstrous. I didn't see him, not really. I saw the version of him that made me look better, the one that fit neatly into a redemptive arc, the one whose suffering could be the background music to my televised humanity. Ethan was never meant to be a person in my story. He was a prop, an accessory, a spotlight painted to look like mercy. If I could go back to that chair, that studio, that blue sweater, I'd tear the script apart. I'd look into the camera and say, "I'm not the man you think I am. I want to be good, but I'm built from mirrors and masks. And there's a boy out there who needs more than what I'm pretending to be." I'd say his name, Ethan, like it was sacred, because it was, because it is. But there's no going back. There's only this room, this letter, this truth. You know what haunts me the most? It's not the backlash, not the headlines, not the shredded career or the death threats. It's the thought that Ethan believed me, that when he saw my face on TV, he thought, "I'm going to live." That he told his mother, he said he'd help. I believe him. That he died holding that belief like a lifeline. I can still hear the audience clapping, not in celebration now, in mockery. Each hand a reminder of the moment I chose vanity over virtue. Each cheer a blade, each smile a scar. They called me a hero on that talk show, but I wasn't a hero. I was a man rehearsing redemption, a fraud wrapped in lighting, a cautionary tale in designer clothes. This is the part of the story no one broadcast. The version with the cameras off, the one where the hero walks off stage and never comes back. I used to believe that forgetting was passive, that it crept in gently, a slow fade of detail, the way colors dull over time if left in sunlight. But now I know better. Forgetting can be a decision, a choice, a deliberate burial of memory beneath distractions, applause, and carefully scheduled interviews. That's what I did to Ethan Brooks. I buried him while he was still alive. Not in soil, in silence. After the talk show aired and the social media frenzy reached its peak, I disappeared into the machine, the one I helped build. I was booked for 5 national segments, 2 morning radio interviews, and an ad campaign that leaned heavily on heart-driven branding. My face was on billboards. My voice was in commercials about empathy. I was everyone's favorite false god, humble, handsome, healed. But while I was polishing the halo, Ethan's mother was waiting for an email that never came. I remember opening her first message. The subject line was simple, following up Ethan's surgery. The body was just a few lines. Gracious, not demanding. She thanked me. She believed me. We're so grateful for your support. Just wanted to confirm the next steps. The hospital is asking for a deposit. I read it on a plane, then marked it as unread, then muted the thread. Not because I forgot, because I knew answering would make it real. The foundation staff tried to follow up on their end too. They called my publicist. She forwarded it to legal. Legal forwarded it to PR. PR drafted a vague statement that was never sent. That's how it works, you see. Good intentions die in the inbox of bureaucracy. Ethan's story became a loose thread in a tightly tailored suit, inconvenient, invisible from the outside, but always there, scratching at the skin. A week passed, then 2. The news cycle shifted. A celebrity divorce, a scandal, a wildfire. No one was asking about Ethan anymore. Not the press, not the fans, not even me. Instead, I was being honored at a gala, an award for humanitarian storytelling. I remember standing on stage staring into a sea of sequins and sparkling eyes and saying the lines someone else had written for me. It's not about being a hero, it's about being human. They stood, they clapped. Somewhere, Ethan's mother was pawning her wedding ring. She emailed again. This time the subject line read, "Urgent, surgery date approaching." There was no greeting, just a plea. "Please, the hospital says we need to pay within 72 hours. I don't know who else to ask. Ethan is getting worse. He asks about you every day. Please respond." I didn't. I forwarded it to my assistant. She wrote back, "Should I handle this?" I said, "Just give it a couple days. Things are moving behind the scenes." Nothing was moving, except the clock. Some nights I wonder what Ethan was thinking in those final days. Did he still believe in me? Did he wake up each morning hoping that today would be the day I came through? Did he sit by the window, the one wrapped in plastic instead of glass, and imagine me walking through the front door like a scene from a movie? "I told you he'd come, Mom." I'll never know, but I hope not, because hope is a cruel companion when it dies unaccompanied. 3 days before his death, Rachel left a voicemail. I wasn't there to hear it live. I listened months later when the fallout began. Her voice was raw, not angry. That came later. This was something else. Something cracked open. "I'm sorry to bother you again. I don't know what else to do. He's not eating. He keeps asking about the surgery. I keep telling him it's coming. I'm trying to believe that too. She paused, then, if you've changed your mind, please just tell me. I'll find another way. I'll sell my car. I'll find a loan shark. Just don't leave us hanging in the dark. Click. I never responded because I hadn't changed my mind. I had never truly made it up in the first place. The day Ethan died, I was doing a photo shoot for a fragrance ad. There's a behind-the-scenes video of it on YouTube. I'm smiling, shirt half unbuttoned, laughing between takes. What does this scent say about you, Tyler? That I care. That clip went viral. Someone added a caption after the scandal broke. The smell of hypocrisy. Ethan's mother never called again. I imagine her silence was heavier than her words, and I deserve every inch of it. The truth? I didn't forget the money. I remembered every day, in flashes, in fragments, in the quiet between appointments. But I kept putting it off, thinking there'd be time. There's always time, until there isn't. And when the hospital pulled the plug, there was no dramatic phone call, no weeping montage. Just a bed with no occupant, a chart with no pulse, a boy whose name was trending for all the wrong reasons. The news broke quietly, a tweet, a headline, then the backlash, not yet the avalanche. That would come later, but enough to rattle the frame. People asked questions. Where was the money? Why hadn't anything been transferred? My team scrambled. We issued statements. We're looking into it. There was a miscommunication. We deeply regret the confusion. Confusion. That's what we called it. Not neglect, not moral failure, not the quiet, orchestrated death of a promise, just confusion. Do you want to know the worst part? I could have fixed it, even after the fact. I could have built a foundation in his name, paid for surgeries for 10 other kids, donated every cent I made from the deal. But I didn't, because I was scared that fixing it meant admitting I was the one who broke it. And Tyler Gray doesn't break things. He inspires. He uplifts. He redeems. That was the lie. That was the brand. And I wore it like a crown made of stolen feathers. I don't know what Rachel Brooks would say to me now. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I imagine her voice, quiet, level, beyond screaming. He believed you. That would be enough to undo me. That already is. Not every villain wears a cape. Some wear blue sweaters and soft smiles. Some sit on talk shows and speak of miracles. Some make promises they never intend to keep. And some let children die waiting for something that was never coming. This isn't the part where I ask for forgiveness. You don't owe me that. No one does. This is just a ledger, a reckoning, a record of every later I whispered until it became too late. His name was Ethan Brooks. He needed a heart, and I never gave him mine, not even a piece. I didn't know the moment he died. Not exactly. I imagine it was quiet. Hospitals often are in those hours just before dawn, not from peace but exhaustion. Machines hum, nurses whisper, lives end without ceremony. It was sometime around 3:40 a.m. on a Monday, while I was sleeping in a king-size bed at the Beverly Regent. Egyptian cotton, blackout curtains, room service untouched, a schedule blocked off for rest before my flight to New York. Another talk show, another smile, another chance to polish the lie. While I slept, Ethan Brooks stopped breathing, and no one noticed. Not right away. Not the world that had applauded, not the camera crews that had filmed our connection, and certainly not me. The next morning, the sun rose as it always did, indifferent, a perfectly normal day for everyone else. My phone buzzed with reminders. My stylist arrived with new suits. There were pastries in the lobby with little folded cards that said, "To the man with the biggest heart." How poetic. How cruel. I didn't check my messages that morning. Not until much later. Not until the buzz around my name, that warm, dizzying hum of admiration, was louder than my conscience. I found out in the most cowardly way, not from a call, not from the hospital, not from the mother whose voicemails I had ignored. No, I found out through a tagged comment on a fan page. Buried under heart emojis and prayer hands, one small line of text. Rest in peace, Ethan. You deserved more than a promise. My stomach dropped. But even then, I didn't believe it. I told myself it had to be a mistake, a rumor, some troll trying to get a rise. I called my assistant. She didn't answer. I texted, "Can you confirm what's going on with the Brooks kid?" That's what I wrote, the Brooks kid, as if using his name would make it too real. She replied an hour later, "I just got off the phone with the hospital. He passed away last night." Rachel didn't want to speak, said there's nothing left to say. Nothing left to say, of course there wasn't. When the heart stops, so do the explanations. I sat there staring at the message. The room around me felt too clean, too bright. I turned off the lights, closed the curtains, and sat in the dark for hours. No tears, no outrage, just silence. It should have been his silence, but somehow it was mine. I don't know how Rachel found the strength to sign the release forms, to gather his things, to walk out of that hospital with a cardboard box instead of a son. I imagine her hands trembling, the weight of the box heavier than it should have been, not from mass but from absence. Inside, a toothbrush, a coloring book, 2 pairs of socks, and a drawing, folded, faint, smudged with crayon. I learned about the drawing later, a heart with wings drifting off into the sky, and beneath it, in his handwriting, "I'll try again next time." Next time. What an unbearable sentence for a child to write. There was no memorial, no national coverage, no follow-up segment. No one came to light a candle on live TV. No editor ran a headline that said, "Boy dies waiting for a promise," because to the world the promise had already been fulfilled. Tyler Gray had done his part, had said the words, had played the role. And what's a dead child to a closed narrative? Collateral, a minor inconvenience to the myth. I wonder what those last hours were like for him. Did he ask for me? Did he still believe? I imagine Rachel sitting by his bed, holding his hand in both of hers, trying to keep her own grief from spilling out onto the sheets. "It's coming, sweetheart. He's just busy. These things take time." And Ethan, poor Ethan, maybe he nodded, maybe he smiled, or maybe, just maybe, he already knew. Maybe he knew that I wasn't coming, that I never was, and maybe he let go anyway, because even children grow tired of holding on to nothing. They say dying is peaceful. They say it's like drifting. But what about when you drift too early? What about when you drift, knowing someone could have pulled you back but didn't? What about when death is not a consequence, but a consequence of a choice someone else made and kept making until time ran out? That's not drifting. That's betrayal with a pulse. In the weeks that followed, I said nothing. I kept filming, kept posing, kept lying. I convinced myself that silence was safer than truth, that it would blow over, that if no one saw the funeral, it never happened. That's what fame does to you. It turns reality into rumor, grief into bad optics. But Rachel knew, and I think, in some cruel way, Ethan did too. A journalist emailed me 2 weeks later. He had questions. "We're looking into discrepancies between your public statements and actual hospital records. Would you like to comment?" I deleted the message, didn't forward it, didn't show anyone. Because if you comment, you confess. And I wasn't ready. I'm still not sure I am. But this is not a comment. This is a confession. This is me, finally saying it out loud in a place where no one can interrupt, where the PR team isn't in the next room, where the lighting isn't fixed to flatter my jawline. This is just me, and the truth, and the shadow of a boy who died quietly in the dark. I want to believe Ethan forgave me. I want to believe in whatever final dream his brain was able to conjure. I showed up, with flowers, with hope, with the courage I never had when it mattered. But I know better now. Forgiveness isn't free. It's not automatic. It's not deserved just because you feel bad after the fact. It has to be earned. And some debts are too heavy to repay. I can't sleep anymore. Not because of the noise, but because of the silence. The same silence I once gave Ethan. It surrounds me now. Perfect symmetry. I didn't go to his funeral. I didn't send flowers. I didn't send a note. Because I didn't deserve to be anywhere near his ending. I had already stolen his middle. The hardest part isn't knowing he died. It's knowing he died still believing I'd come. That somewhere inside his fragile little chest, his failing heart held room for hope. Hope that I would show up, do what I promised, be the man the world said I was. But I didn't, and I wasn't, and I'm not. You can scrub your face clean of makeup, but not memory. You can wash off a roll, but not a child's last breath. And some stains live under the skin. Ethan Brooks is gone, but the weight of his waiting, that's still here, right now, right here, inside me. They built the statue before the ground over his grave had time to settle. It rose from polished marble in the center of Liberty Plaza, a place where the city gathered for holiday parades and spring farmers markets. A place Ethan Brooks would never visit. A place I had never earned. They didn't ask for my permission. They didn't need to. That's the funny thing about myths. Once they've been written, not even the liar who told them can unwrite them. And so in the plaza's center, they placed a life-size bronze version of me, right hand raised in a soft gesture of promise, as if mid-speech. Lips parted slightly, eyes gazing upward, like I was watching hope descend from the sky. It was flattering, too flattering, even for someone like me. But the plaque was the worst of it. A single line carved into gold-leafed granite, champion of children's hearts. When I first saw the photos, I laughed. Not out of joy, not of disbelief, out of the kind of nausea that looks for oxygen in mockery. Because by then, I already knew Ethan was gone, and I already knew why. They unveiled the statue with ceremony, streamers, speeches, gospel choirs. The mayor said something about compassion in the entertainment industry. A local councilwoman called it a shining reminder of what it means to care. Crowds gathered. Tourists posed beside it. Selfies flooded social media with captions like, "Finally met my hero. True kindness still exists. The man who saved a life." And all the while I sat in my apartment watching the live stream, muted, jaw clenched, breathing through my nose like a man trying not to throw up his own reflection. I got a call that evening from my publicist. "Did you see it?" "Yeah. It's beautiful. Viral already. We should post something. Maybe a short video thanking the city?" I didn't respond. I just stared at the paused image on my laptop screen. My bronze hand frozen mid-vow. The vow I never kept. "Tyler? No video," I said. "Are you sure? This is the kind of legacy moment people dream of." "No video." She sighed, said we'd circle back. We never did. Over the next few days, the plaza became a pilgrimage site. Parents brought their children. Teachers brought their students. A church group held a prayer vigil under the statue's outstretched hand. All to honor a lie. A beautiful, shining, symmetrical lie. A part of me thought, hoped, maybe, that someone would speak up, that someone in the crowd would pause and wonder, did the surgery ever happen? Where is the boy now? What happened after the cameras stopped rolling? But no one asked, because the statue answered for them, and statues don't blink when they lie. I visited it once, late at night, when the plaza was empty and the moon had the decency to stay hidden behind clouds. I wore a hoodie, pulled low, kept my head down. The bronze was colder than I expected, the figure more lifelike than I was comfortable with. I circled it in silence, reading the words on the plaque again and again until they lost all shape. Champion of children's hearts. As if the title had been etched not in metal, but in bone. I wanted to deface it, to chip away the false grin on that metal face, to smash the plaque and leave it shattered beneath his feet. But I didn't, because even shame has its cowardice, and mine was still very much alive. Behind the statue, there was a flower bed. People had left small offerings, teddy bears, hand-drawn cards, notes scrawled in marker. You inspire me. Thank you for caring. Because of you, I want to help others. I stood there, reading each one like a man at his own funeral. Every word carved deeper into me than any monument ever could. Then I saw it, a small folded piece of paper, tucked beneath a stuffed lion. It was damp from dew, edges curled, but the writing was unmistakable. Crayon, red and blue, a child's drawing, a heart with wings. So familiar, too familiar. I didn't need to flip it over. I already knew what it would say. I'll try again next time. I left before the sun rose. I didn't look back. I told myself I wouldn't come again. But the next night, I returned. And the night after that. And the next. Not as a visitor, but as something else. Something closer to a ghost. People say guilt fades, that it dulls with time, like pain after a wound scabs over. They're wrong. Real guilt evolves. It grows smarter, learns to whisper instead of scream. And it follows you everywhere, even into your own monument. There's a photo someone took the following week, a grainy night shot, a silhouette kneeling beneath the statue, head bowed, hands in pockets. The caption read, "Is that Tyler Gray, praying under his own legacy?" No one knew what I was praying for, least of all me. I kept thinking of Rachel, of how she must have felt seeing that statue. I imagined her walking by one day, maybe with groceries, maybe with nothing, and stopping mid-step to see the man who never came, now immortalized in stone and praise. I wondered if she screamed, if she wept, if she felt anything at all, or if she had simply gone numb. I deserved her rage. Her silence was worse, because it meant I wasn't even worth the energy of hate. I was simply gone, forgotten, just another broken promise tucked beneath bronze. The statue stood for weeks, untouched, unquestioned. The city was proud. The press was quiet. The narrative was clean, but not for long, because the truth has a funny way of finding cracks. And when it seeps in, it doesn't knock. It bleeds. But not now. Not yet. There are still more lies to count, more silences to answer for. And a story that hasn't finished falling. It began with a stain, not a scream, not a protest, not a viral expose or a thunderous fall from grace, just a stain, barely visible at first, subtle, like the earliest symptoms of a disease no one wants to name. They found it beneath the right eye of the statue, mine, a dark streak, thin, clinging to the bronze cheek as if weeping. Someone snapped a photo, posted it, captioned it with a question. Why does the Tyler Gray statue look like it's crying blood? It should have been a joke. And for a day or two, that's all it was. Memes followed, videos with distorted voices and horror movie music. Theories about symbolism, climate effects, paint vandalism. One artist called it a haunting metaphor for compassion. Another dubbed it accidental brilliance. But Rachel Brooks didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Not yet. Because the truth was just waking up. When I first saw the post, I stared at it for a long time. Too long. That streak of red, unnatural but not vibrant, like something that had dried over time. Something real. I zoomed in, again. Part of me thought it was fake, edited, provoked. But another part, the part I can't turn off anymore, knew. I didn't sleep that night, not out of fear, but recognition. You see, marble doesn't bleed, bronze doesn't mourn, but a lie made of flesh, a promise never paid, that stains everything it touches. The city sent maintenance crews the next morning. They scrubbed it, wiped the face clean, took official photos, released a statement. Just corrosion, nothing to worry about. But people were already talking. Some claimed they saw it before dawn. Others said it wasn't the first time. And a few, only a few, whispered that it didn't look like rust. It looked like blood. I returned that night, not to see it, not really. I told myself I was checking for damage, making sure it hadn't been vandalized, that the image of me, my statue, hadn't been defaced by conspiracy. But when I saw it again, I said nothing, because it was back. Thinner this time, more reluctant, like the memory of a tear instead of the tear itself. It trailed down from beneath the right eye, the one that faced the northeast, the direction of Greenridge Cemetery, where Ethan was buried. I sat on a bench across the plaza and watched it until dawn. Not moving, not breathing hard, just waiting. And when the sun rose, the streak was gone. Not wiped, not scraped. Gone, as if the statue had wept only in the dark. People started leaving candles again. Not in celebration this time, in confusion. Some stood at a distance. Some knelt. Some whispered things I couldn't hear. They didn't call me a hero anymore. They didn't call me anything. They looked at that statue the way you look at a stranger you used to know. Someone whose name you forgot, but whose shadow feels familiar. A local paper ran a story. Mysterious marks appear on Tyler Gray's statue. Vandalism or vision? The article quoted a tourist who said, "It felt sad, like something was broken inside it, or like it was trying to tell us we got the story wrong." I didn't reply, didn't release a statement, didn't tweet. What could I say? Sorry, that's not weather damage. That's the guilt bleeding through. They brought in experts, chemists, historians, even an artist who specialized in public monuments. He said, "There's no structural flaw, nothing that should be producing that color or texture." They ran tests, sampled residue, ran it under microscopes. I don't know what they found, or if they told the truth, but after that, the statue was roped off. Maintenance and safety, the sign said. People still stood around the perimeter, as if waiting for it to move, or speak, or bleed again. A child asked her mother, "Why is the statue sad?" The mother paused, looked at it, then said softly, "Maybe it remembers something." I started dreaming again. Not the comforting kind, not even nightmares, just fragments. A hospital hallway, plastic over a window, a small boy's hand reaching toward a screen. Sometimes he spoke, but I never heard the words, not clearly, only the sound of something being torn, not loudly, but slowly, like a page, or a promise. I didn't go to the plaza for 3 days after that. Tried to keep myself busy, tried to drink, tried to forget. But forgetting, like I said, isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose. And I had run out of choices. When I came back, the rope was gone. But so were the crowds. The candles had melted into black puddles. The notes had turned soggy in the rain. Only one thing remained, a child's drawing, laminated now, tucked under a stone so it wouldn't blow away. A heart with wings, and this time, a broken clock drawn beneath it, no hands on his face. Below it, the words, "He never came." No signature, no explanation, just a verdict. I stood there for a long time, long enough for the sun to shift, long enough for the statue's face to fall back into shadow. And in that shadow, I saw it, a new streak, not down the cheek this time, from the corner of the eye to the jaw. Dark, slow, undeniable. It hadn't been there moments ago. I swear it hadn't. But now it was, alive in its stillness. And this time I didn't laugh, or kneel, or pray. I turned around, and I ran. They say some monuments are haunted, not by spirits, but by lies. Lies with weight, lies that drip, lies that refuse to stay buried. But no, not now. This isn't the part where you hear about the girl, or the collapse, or the turning of the head. This is just the beginning of the unraveling. The blood was never the climax. It was the whisper, the warning, the first red thread pulling at the seam of a perfectly woven story. And the fabric is only just beginning to tear. They say history repeats itself, but sometimes it doesn't echo. It sharpens. It learns where to pierce deeper. That's what happened with Lily Carson, 7 years old, a child who bore no resemblance to Ethan, except for the stillness in her eyes, that old, heavy silence children should never wear. Her story wasn't meant to find mine. She wasn't part of the narrative, but guilt doesn't stay in one place. It wanders, it multiplies, and that day it found her. I didn't know her name at first, only the headline. Girl collapses at Tyler Gray statue. Family claims cardiac trauma. I read it in a diner, 2 states away, hands trembling around a coffee I didn't touch. The article was short, too short, just facts, no answers. A child with a known heart condition had visited the statue, knelt beneath it, placed a drawing. Another one, this time of a golden heart wrapped in thorns. Then, according to her mother, Lily whispered something and collapsed. Doctors said her heart spasmed in a way they couldn't explain, as if squeezed, not from outside, from within, as if something in her had clenched around itself. Hard. I called the hospital the next day. Block number, no name. Asked if she was alive. The nurse on the line hesitated. She's stable, but fragile. I asked nothing more. I couldn't, because I had already started to shake. She didn't die, not like Ethan, but something in her shifted. Her mother gave an interview days later. Eyes sunken, voice brittle. She spoke into microphones she never asked for. We were there to honor someone she looked up to. She saw the statue online. She called him the man who helps hearts. My stomach twisted. She went on. Lily said she felt something when she touched the base, like it was heavy, like it was watching her. She wasn't scared, just sad. The interview cut to footage of the plaza, the statue, a zoom on Lily's drawing, now laminated, taped to the side of the pedestal, and scrawled beneath the golden heart, "I hope he doesn't forget me." They called it a coincidence. Doctors, psychologists, city officials, psychosomatic episode, emotional reaction, no causal connection. But people started asking again. Old posts resurfaced. Ethan's name returned. My name soured in the air. They compared the drawings, the 2 children, the timing. They noticed the blood, the streaks that had now deepened on the statue's face, dried like rust, but too dark, too deliberate. And still, I said nothing. No public statement, no denial, no confession, just more silence. The kind that wraps itself around a wound and keeps it warm. I dreamed of her that night. Not Lily, Rachel. She was standing in front of the statue. Windless plaza, moon like a lid over the world. She held Ethan in her arms. Except he wasn't 8 anymore. He was smaller, weightless. She placed him at the statue's feet, like an offering or a warning. Then she turned toward me. Not the real me, but the version standing in bronze. And she whispered, not with her mouth, but into my bones. Do you remember now? I woke up gasping. Lily survived, but the doctors couldn't explain what had happened to her. Her heart, they said, had gone into something like shock, not from exertion, not from fear, as if it mourned before it was told to. Her mother took her home, took down all the photos of me in their house, burned the fan letters, deleted the posts, and for the second time in less than a year, a mother had to explain to her child that the man she believed in wasn't who he seemed, that miracles made for camera flashes weren't the same as real ones. The media grew restless. Some still defended me. Others sensed blood. Not the kind on the statue, the kind that stains careers. Was Tyler Gray ever a true philanthropist? Unanswered questions in the Ethan Brooks case. Second incident sparks outrage. Why is this statue still standing? And still, I waited, frozen, like my own monument. You want to know what I felt? Guilt, yes. But more than that, inevitability. Like I'd cast a stone into a well a year ago, and now the sound was finally climbing back up. Lily's collapse wasn't the beginning. It was an echo. Ethan's voice in someone else's chest. A borrowed pain. A reminder that when you break a promise in public, you don't just kill a moment, you curse the air around it. There's footage. A bystander's phone. Lily reaching up to touch the statue's ankle, then stopping, then freezing, then folding forward like a letter never read. No scream, no flailing, just silence, just stillness, like Ethan, like me. The city announced plans to inspect the statue again, an internal review, potential relocation. But the crowd had already shifted, from praise to protest. A week later, someone painted the base with red letters. He never came. They washed it off. But words like that, they don't need to stay visible to stain. This wasn't the collapse. Not yet. This was the moment the floor started to crack. The murmur before the roar. The second child. The second drawing. The second silence. No statue should be a shrine to a lie. No monument should tower over a grave it helped dig. And no child, should bleed from the same wound twice. But it would happen again, because we were already past redemption, and the stone hadn't finished weeping. I didn't believe it at first, even after Ethan, even after Lily, even after the blood. Somewhere inside me there was still a man clinging to the illusion of physics, of reason. A man who could look at a statue and say, it's just metal. But then the footage surfaced, and belief no longer asked for my permission. The video was posted anonymously, grainy security cam feed, no sound, no edits. The camera sat high above Liberty Plaza, affixed to the municipal clock tower. A wide shot of the statue, unmoving, majestic, lifeless, until 3:33 a.m. That's when it happened. The head turned, slowly, deliberately. From its fixed position, eyes forward toward the Civic Hall, it rotated left inch by inch until it faced northeast, toward Greenridge Cemetery, where Ethan is buried. I watched it 100 times, then 100 more. Every frame, every pixel. There were no shadows playing tricks, no camera glitches, no edit cuts, just bronze moving like breath. A man captured in metal, shifting in the dark, like even the sculpture couldn't bear to look forward anymore. The city denied it, called it fake, said the footage had been altered, pointed to lighting angles, digital artifacts, compression distortion, but others began to come forward. The night janitor at City Hall, a rideshare driver parked across the street, a bakery worker prepping for morning orders. They all said the same thing. I thought it was just me, but yeah, it moved. People began arriving at the plaza just before 3 a.m. Not with candles this time, with cameras, tripods, thermal sensors, some with crosses, some with chalk circles, the kind of watchers who believed in hauntings, and the kind who didn't, until now. And each night at 3:33 the head moved, only slightly, only once, but it moved, always toward the same direction, always toward the boy it never saved. They called it the turning, a name too poetic for something so cruel. News anchors spoke of it nervously, trying not to sound superstitious. Social media lit up. Clips went viral. Speculation spread like oil on fire. Is it a mechanical defect? A protest installation? A spiritual manifestation? But the people who knew, really knew, didn't ask those questions. They already had the answer, even if they couldn't say it out loud. I stayed away at first, refused to join the crowds, refused to validate the horror. But horror doesn't ask for validation. It grows in silence, and eventually, it drags you back. The night I returned, I wore black, not for disguise, for mourning. For shame, there were 30, maybe 40 people in the plaza, all silent, as if they feared speaking would disturb something ancient. The statue loomed above us, still as always, except now it felt heavier, charged. I checked my watch. 3:31. Some people started filming, others just stared. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. 3:32. The air changed, not temperature, something else, like the atmosphere thickened, like the sky was holding its breath. Then it happened, slow, smooth, mechanical in motion, but not in sound, because there was no sound, just the shift, the neck, the jawline, the face, until the eyes, my eyes, pointed to the northeast again, toward Ethan, always Ethan. A child in the crowd began to cry, not from fear, but something else, something deeper. A woman dropped her phone. It shattered on the brick. She didn't bend to pick it up. No one said anything. No one screamed, because the terror was too sacred to be loud. Someone whispered, "He's looking for him." And I felt it then. Not metaphor, not drama, not guilt. I felt him. Ethan, not in the flesh, but in the absence, in the space between us, in the silence after the turn. After that night, the city fenced the statue, installed barriers, posted guards. They claimed it was for safety, but we all knew it was fear. You don't guard metal, you guard secrets, you guard ghosts. I stopped appearing in public, not out of shame. I was already drenched in it. But because everywhere I went, people turned too, turned their heads, turned their backs, turned the camera. And somehow that statue turning in the dark felt more human than all of them combined. I had once built a lie so perfect it needed a monument, and now that monument refused to stand still, because the lie had become restless, because the boy beneath it would not be ignored. Rachel still said nothing, not online, not to the press, not to me, but I imagined her watching the footage, alone, in a dim room, tea gone cold. I imagined her whispering to the screen, "Do you see him now?" And the statue, the idol of my failure, answering with its silence and its turn. People started leaving clocks at the statue's base. All stopped at 3:33. Dozens of them, stacked, taped, laid gently in circles, some broken, some still ticking faintly, resisting the ritual. But eventually, they'd stop too, as if time itself refused to keep marching past what happened. As if the universe, or something like it, had chosen that moment to freeze and rewind and weep. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't punishment. It was memory made physical, sorrow shaped into ritual, truth finally refusing to stay buried. They asked me once in an interview, long ago before all this, "Do you believe in ghosts?" I laughed, said something cute about being haunted by my exes. But now I don't laugh. Because ghosts are not chains and moans. They are unfulfilled promises, unwritten endings, dead boys whose names you use like currency. And sometimes they turn to look at you. There are messages that vanish, buried under a sea of emails, texts, notifications, meeting requests, the ones you tell yourself you'll answer later, when you have time, when you're in the right mood, when the world isn't watching. And then there are the messages that never let go, that sink their hooks into you long after the sound has faded, the ones that wait in the dark like open eyes, unread, unreplied, unforgiven. I had 13 of them, from Rachel Brooks. They weren't dramatic. They weren't filled with rage or accusation. Just tired hope. The kind of hope that frays at the edges but refuses to fall apart. The first came the day after my announcement on the talk show. Subject line, "Thank you so much. Mr. Gray, I don't even know what to say. We saw the segment last night, and Ethan couldn't stop smiling. He kept asking when you'd be coming. I told him soon. God bless you." I remember seeing that one. I even typed a response. "Glad to help. We'll have someone from my team reach out. But I never hit send. Why? I don't know. Maybe I thought it wasn't urgent. Maybe I thought kindness was enough. Maybe I just didn't care. The second message came 2 days later. Just following up, the hospital asked for contact info to coordinate the payment. Let me know what works best. We are so grateful. I didn't open that one. My assistant flagged it as handled. It wasn't. The third came a week after that. Shorter. Still no word from your team. They say we have to confirm by the 12th or we lose the surgery date. Ethan's been drawing pictures for you. I didn't read it then. Only now. Message 4 was darker, not in tone, in punctuation. No greeting. No thank you. Just, please respond. I didn't. Message 5. I can't quote it without shaking. He asked me today if you forgot. I told him no. I told him people like you don't forget children like him. People like me. She meant it with awe, and now it reads like venom. Message 6. We lost our spot. The hospital said there's still a chance if we pay by Friday. Please, I'm sorry to keep bothering you. Message 7. He's not eating. He's tired all the time. I caught him staring out the window for hours. Said he's waiting for your car. Message 8 was sent at 2:17 a.m. I lied to him. I told him you were on your way. I stopped counting after that, stopped opening them, told my team not to forward anything else from the woman in Nevada. I was too busy filming a commercial about gratitude. The final message came 3 days before Ethan died. It wasn't from Rachel, it was from him. A voice memo. 11 seconds. Hi, Mr. Tyler. Mom is crying again. I think my heart is tired, but I'm still waiting. No background noise, just his voice. Cracking slightly. Hopeful. Polite. I've played it over 100 times. Maybe more. I still don't understand how a child so close to death could sound so gentle. He never begged. He never blamed. And that's the part that breaks me. Because I could have lived with anger. I could have braced against fury. But kindness, that kind of kindness, offered even as his body gave out, that's what haunts. That's what stains. A journalist got hold of the messages later. I don't know how. Maybe Rachel shared them. Maybe someone at the foundation leaked the chain. Maybe the universe just got tired of waiting for me to confess. The article was titled, "The Silence That Killed." They quoted every message, listed the dates, cross-referenced them with my Instagram posts, with the dinners, the panels, the Compassion Award ceremonies. It was a blood map, drawn in timestamps. People turned fast after that, even those who once called me an inspiration, even those who said, we all make mistakes, because 13 unanswered cries for help isn't a mistake. It's a choice, repeated, rehearsed, final. I issued a statement. Of course I did. I regret the oversight, miscommunication within my team. No words can express, but words weren't what she needed. She needed action, and I gave her air. I've printed those messages now, each one, on thick paper, no formatting, no signature, just her words and his. They sit on my desk. I read them like scripture, not to absolve myself, but to remember exactly where the fault line began. The inbox is empty now. There's no one left to reply to, no one waiting, but the messages remain, pinned to my walls, etched into my breath. Each line a nail, each silence a shovel. I think about that voice memo, his voice, still waiting, but not anymore, not now. There's a moment, if you're lucky, when a lie becomes too heavy to carry. It doesn't shatter, it doesn't scream, it just settles into your spine, into your breath, into every reflection that no longer blinks when you do. I reach that moment standing in front of my own statue, watching the cracks begin to show. Not metaphorical cracks, real ones. Hairline fractures spreading from the chest outward, branching like veins that had grown impatient beneath the surface. The marble was splitting. It started 2 weeks after the messages leaked. The plaza was mostly empty by then. Tourists had stopped coming, candles had been cleared, the ropes had gone back up. But the statue remained, still, silent, waiting. And then one morning, someone noticed a fault line, a fissure just below the collarbone, right where a real heart might live. The city claimed it was due to heat stress, moisture expanding in the stone. But the weather had been mild, no storms, no frost. No logical reason, still they shrugged, posted a small sign that read, "Scheduled maintenance pending," as if you could repair a story by smoothing over its surface. I returned to the statue that night, alone. The plaza felt different now, not haunted, not holy, just hollow, like the echo of a song no one wanted to hear anymore. I approached the crack with a flashlight, shining it across the split like a surgeon inspecting an incision. The break had deepened, a slow, deliberate wound, the kind a body makes when it tries to rid itself of infection. And then I saw it. Something inside, not wires, not stone, color, red, not paint, a texture. I stepped back, heart pounding. There was something inside the statue. The city sent a team to investigate the next morning. 2 workers with chisels, gloves, caution tape. They tapped, measured, marked, and then they opened it. Just a small portion, just enough. What they found made national news by nightfall. Inside the chest cavity, encased in steel framing and insulation foam, was a heart, not real, not flesh, but unmistakable. A small, sculpted object, made of wax, red, melted in places, shaped like a child's drawing. At its base, carved with something sharp, "Forgive me." No one claimed responsibility, not the sculptor, not the city, not the charity who'd funded the statue, not the team who'd cast the mold. No one, because it hadn't been there when it was built. I didn't put it there. At least, not with my hands. But part of me wonders if I willed it into being, if guilt can shape wax as easily as it carves memory, or maybe someone else had done it. Someone who knew. Rachel? I doubt it. Her grief was too sacred for theatrics, too real to perform vengeance. Whoever it was, they buried the truth inside the lie, and the lie tried to hold it, until it couldn't anymore. Reporters swarmed the plaza again. Microphones returned. Pundits debated on air. Was this an act of protest? Performance art? A spiritual warning? And beneath it all, the same undercurrent pulsed. What else was inside? What else hadn't we seen? What else had we chosen not to? The city tried to remove the heart, said it was unauthorized, but the public pushed back. Petitions, marches, demands. They called it evidence. They called it sacred. They said, "Let the statue keep its shame." The mayor issued a statement. This city will not hide from its contradictions. But I already had, for months, years, a lifetime. I stood before the crack again 3 nights later. This time the ropes were gone. No guards, no cameras, just me, and the thing I built, and the thing I buried. I reached out and touched the edge of the split. The stone was cold, but the wax inside, it was warm, somehow. I pulled my hand back, not out of fear, out of reverence, as if I'd touched something living. A gust of wind passed through the plaza. Dry leaves scraped across the bricks, and for a moment I thought I heard something. Not a voice, not a sound, a breath. Like the statue had exhaled, like the weight of what it held had finally become too much. That night someone spray-painted the base again, in black this time. One word, liar. The city scrubbed it clean by morning, but it returned 2 nights later. Always the same word, always in the same place. Eventually they stopped cleaning it, let it stay, like a signature at the bottom of a confession. I was no longer a man. I was an artifact, a warning, an exhibit of what happens when image becomes idol. When a boy's last breath becomes background noise for a standing ovation. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that the statue cracked and the truth spilled out, and we all learned something. But stone takes time to fall, and lies have roots, deep ones. There was still more to break, still more to bleed, still more to burn. But even now, I think about that wax heart, tiny, childlike, soft, more real than anything I ever offered. And I wonder, when they cast the statue, did they hear it beat? There are truths so ugly we bury them before we even speak them aloud. Not in graveyards, not in books, but in hard drives, in deleted files, in the quiet agreement between those who know better than to let light touch certain things. But nothing stays buried forever, not even footage, especially not the kind that was never supposed to exist. It surfaced on a Wednesday, no warning, no build-up, just a late-night post on a fringe forum. Exclusive, behind the scenes of Tyler Gray's Hero Act. You're not ready for this. It should have been ignored, should have drowned in noise like 1,000 other lies. But truth has a sound, even in low resolution, even behind static. And this was unmistakable. The video was 4 minutes and 17 seconds long, date stamped, uncut, captured on a production assistant's phone, unintended, unseen. Until now. It showed me, backstage, moments after the now infamous talk show appearance, the one where I promised Ethan Brooks a second chance at life. My mic was still clipped to my collar, my jacket draped over a chair. I was laughing, not politely, not nervously. Laughing, that sharp, careless kind of laugh that belongs to men who think they're untouchable. I watched the clip in full silence the first time, and again, and again. Each time, a part of me hoped the audio would distort, that maybe I hadn't said what I remembered saying. But I had. I leaned into the makeup artist who was dabbing powder off my chin and said, "God, that went better than I thought. You see the way they ate it up?" She chuckled nervously. I went on. Might actually get the sympathy bump this quarter. Poor kid, though. Cute story. The assistant off camera asked, "So you're really covering the surgery?" And I laughed again, waved it off. Jesus, no. That was for optics. We'll circle back. Always do. Those last two words, I said them with air quotes. Circle back. The video cut out after that, but it didn't need more. The damage was done. Within an hour, it hit Twitter. By sunrise, it was on every news channel. Anchors ran it side by side with the original pledge. The moment I'd promised the world a miracle. People watch both clips together now. The lie and the smirk behind it. The vow and the venom. No more confusion. No more speculation. No more mystery. Only revelation. Ugly, complete, final. They called it the nail in the coffin. But coffins are for the dead. I was still breathing. Still watching myself rot in real time. Sponsors dropped me within 12 hours. Studios erased my name from credits. Streaming platforms removed entire seasons of work I'd carried. I lost agents, friends, 500,000 followers overnight. But the silence that followed, that was the loudest it had ever been. I didn't leave my apartment for a week. Didn't shower. Didn't sleep. I played the clip on loop until I hated the sound of my own voice, until I didn't recognize it anymore. Or worse, I did and realized that version had always been real. They asked me for a statement, as if anything I said now could compete with what I'd already said when I thought no one was listening. They wanted remorse, public contrition, an apology tour. But what do you say when you've already said the most honest part of yourself? The part that mocks a dying child for not being a big enough brand win? There were no words, only proof and silence. I watched old footage of Ethan again, from the hospital, that shaky video of him smiling into a camera. I hope one day I can run again, like the other kids. Now people watched it differently, not as a promise, but a eulogy, a boy who smiled for a future that was never coming. I tried to call Rachel. Twice. The number was disconnected. Good. She owed me nothing. Not a confrontation, not a reply, not even her rage. Some silences are sacred, and her silence was a grave I had no right to stand near. Petitions began. They wanted the statue torn down. Protests flared in front of Liberty Plaza. Paint, signs, flares. Not our hero. A liar in bronze. His mouth killed more than his silence. They wrapped the statue in black plastic, like a body at a crime scene. Eventually, the city caved. The removal was scheduled for Friday, public, televised, like an execution. But the night before they brought it down, someone carved into the base. Deep, sharp, messy. It said, "He was real, the boy. You just never saw him." I didn't sleep that night, didn't eat, didn't blink, just stared at the wall, waiting. Not for forgiveness, not for closure, just the click. The final one. You see, the footage wasn't just a revelation, it was a mirror. And I finally looked into it. And what I saw was the reason I'm telling you all this now. Not to be saved, but to be known. Truly, finally, fatally. There's more still to tell. The blood, the shattering, the silence that followed even the collapse. But we're close now. So close. And when it comes, when the final crack splits the lie wide open, I want you to remember this. It wasn't the curse. It wasn't the statue. It wasn't even the child. It was the smirk. The one I wore when I thought no one was watching. The one I still taste in my throat. It didn't fall quietly. No lie ever does. Not when it's lived this long. Not when it's grown roots in applause and hardened into stone. When the statue finally broke, it didn't just crack. It erupted. They'd planned it like an exorcism disguised as a civic act. A public removal. A final cleansing of the shame they helped shape. The mayor called it an unfortunate necessity. The foundation released a statement. Tyler Gray's legacy no longer reflects the values we stand for. Legacy. As if I'd left anything behind except a trail of apologies I never said and a child I never saved. Friday, 11 a.m. That was the moment it was scheduled. Cranes, workers in hard hats, news vans forming a neat half circle like vultures around a dying myth. Police lined the barricades, though no one expected violence. Protesters stood silently, holding signs. A few children were there too, not out of admiration, but curiosity. They'd heard their parents whisper about the statue like a ghost story. They wanted to see it come down. I watched it all from a distance. Disguised, yes, but no longer hiding. I needed to be there, not to speak, not to stop it, to witness, to hear the lie scream as it collapsed. At 11:07 a.m., the first chain tightened around its neck. The crowd hushed. Cameras clicked. Birds scattered. They tugged. The bass groaned. A low, seismic sound, like the breath before a sob. Then came the crack, a lightning strike through the chest, the same place the wax heart had been discovered. The sound was impossible. Thick, wet, too alive. And then it bled. Not metaphor, not imagined, not poetic. It bled. From the chest cavity, through the veins of the cracks, pouring out in thick red liquid that no one could explain. It wasn't paint, it wasn't rust, it wasn't weathered metal or industrial dye. It was blood, or something that wanted to be. The crowd screamed. Some ran. Some dropped to their knees. One woman fainted. The workers froze. The crane operator left the controls. Even the cops backed away, eyes wide, mouths shut. Because you can't train for a statue that bleeds. I stood still. Not because I was brave, because I was hollow. The red ran down the front of the monument, seeping into the seams of the bricks, pooling where the pedestal had stood. It stained shoes, signs, streets. Some people wept. Others prayed. One child whispered, "It's crying for the boy." And maybe he was right. Maybe the stone had held too much for too long. Maybe the lies had finally liquefied. Maybe the silence had become unbearable, even for marble. They canceled the removal, barricaded the plaza, declared it a contamination site. But the damage was done, and not to the stone, to them, to everyone who'd clapped, who'd shared, who'd praised. Now they looked at the statue like a wound they had helped carve, and it bled in all directions, not just down, but out, into memory, into myth, into guilt. The media scrambled for explanations. Hidden dye reservoir ruptured. Performance art gone too far. Religious phenomenon? Experts offered theories. Scientists ran tests. Priests issued warnings. But no one could explain how a sealed sculpture of bronze and marble poured out something warm and dark as grief. Rachel never spoke. Not publicly, not to the press, but someone saw her that day. She stood behind the crowd, no sign in her hands, no tears on her face, just silence, as if she'd been waiting for the statue to finally do what I never could. Tell the truth. That night the plaza was closed, but people came anyway, climbed the fences, lit candles, left flowers, not for me, for Ethan, for the child who never made it to the second headline, the one whose name had been pushed aside by mine. Now they spoke his name aloud. They carved it into the pavement with keys, scratched it into benches, etched it on the barricades. Ethan, 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 like a chant, like a correction. The city removed the statue 2 days later. No ceremony, no media. Just a quiet dismantling in the early morning before the sun could catch the red still staining the base. They carted it away in pieces, but the stain remained. They tried to power wash it, bleach it, burn it. But it never left, because you can scrub the metal, you can bury the stone, but you can't erase a child's last breath when it's etched in guilt. I went back one last time, days after, in daylight, no disguise. No one noticed me. I was no longer someone to notice. I stood where the statue had once been, over the ghost of the pedestal, where the blood had pooled, and I whispered, "You can stop bleeding now." They know. But even as I said it, I felt it. The truth doesn't stop bleeding. It just finds a new place to flow. That was the day the statue died, but not the guilt, not the memory, not the boy, and certainly not me. I lived, still do. That's the curse, not the blood, not the statue. Survival. Green Ridge Cemetery isn't famous. No sweeping arches, no grand mausoleums, just rows of plain headstones, leaning slightly with time, as if even the dead here carry the weight of disappointment. You wouldn't find it unless you were looking, and most people aren't. But they found it anyway. Not the tourists, not the cameras, the ones who still cared, the ones who wanted to put the story back where it began, in a child's grave, not a man's stage. I didn't go the day they arrived. I watched from afar, a group of students, mostly young, art majors, I think. One of them had posted online a week earlier, "If the city won't build him a statue, we will." And they did. Not a towering structure, not bronze, not marble, just broken pieces. They'd gathered debris from Liberty Plaza, chipped stone, bits of the statue's fractured pedestal, shards left behind after the city's cleanup. They carried them in backpacks, boxes, grocery bags. One student even wheeled in a cracked tile on a skateboard, and they built it, right there beside the real grave. Ethan's grave. It wasn't ornate, it wasn't symmetrical, it was honest. They stacked the broken stone in a ring, laid wax in the center, red, soft, shaped like a heart, and above it, on a thin wooden post, they placed a laminated printout of Ethan's drawing, the heart with wings, the same one he made before he died. Only this time, someone had added words beneath it. We remember you, even if he didn't. They didn't say my name, not once, but it was everywhere, in the silence, in the reason they were there. I was the shadow cast over that small, sacred circle, the echo between each gesture. They brought gifts, not flowers, toys, sketchbooks, packets of crayons. Some wrote letters and left them folded under stones. Others read aloud, softly like prayers. You should have had more time. I'm sorry the world used you. You mattered. Simple things, but powerful. Because no one had said those words when they still could have reached him. I finally visited the grave myself, alone, late, uninvited. There was no fanfare, no gasps, just wind and dust and the quiet ticking of someone else's apology. The grave marker was modest, smoothed over with weather, just his name, 2 dates, no epitaph. So I read one of the letters they left behind. It said, "You deserved more than a name in someone else's redemption arc." And I folded it back carefully, placed it at the base of the wax heart. I didn't cry. I haven't in years. Guilt hardens everything it touches. But something in me broke. Not loudly, not visibly, just enough. Like a splinter cracking in the soul. I sat there for hours, tracing the edge of the stone, trying to imagine what his voice sounded like. Not the recordings, not the interviews, his real voice. The one he used when no one was listening, when it was just him and the dark and the ache in his chest. Did he whisper to the window? Did he hum to himself? Did he ever, even for a moment, wish I hadn't promised anything at all? Because silence would have hurt less than betrayal dressed as hope. I brought something with me. Not much. Just a piece of the statue. A chunk of my own hand. The right one, the one that had been raised mid-speech. It still bore the curve of a finger pointing skyward. I placed it at the edge of the ring, away from the heart, far from the letters. I didn't carve anything into it. No signature, no initials. It didn't deserve a name. It was an artifact of a lie, and lies don't get to speak anymore. A child came by while I was still there. I thought she might recognize me. She didn't. She just looked at the ring of stone, at the drawing, at the wax heart. And she said to her father, "He has wings now." The father nodded. Maybe he never needed saving. And they walked away. They were right. Ethan didn't need a hero. He needed someone real, someone present, someone who showed up before the applause. But I gave him performance. I gave him optics. I gave him delay and distance and death. And now I give him this, a circle of ruin wrapped in silence, built from the broken pieces of my monument. It's not justice, it's not healing, but it's truth. And sometimes that's all that's left to offer. Before I left, I took a photo, not of the grave, of the drawing, the heart with wings. I keep it as a reminder of the boy I didn't save, of the story I stole, of the promise I broke so beautifully the world applauded it. They'll forget me. They already are. But they'll remember him because someone rebuilt his memory from the ruin of mine. Because love, even in fragments, endures longer than fame. Because wax hearts melt. But the names written beneath them, those stay. I used to believe guilt was loud, sharp, immediate, a siren screaming through your chest. But real guilt, the kind that stays, the kind that follows you through every room, every breath, is quiet. It doesn't shout, it lingers. In the silence after your name is no longer spoken. In the pause between each memory you can't bear to replay, but can't seem to stop. I am no longer the man they once adored. No longer a headline. No longer a face on posters or a voice in glossy interviews. I am just the echo now, of a vow I didn't keep, of a boy I didn't save, of a story I rewrote to center myself. And in that echo, there is only one truth that keeps repeating. We thought someone else would help. That's the sentence that built this entire tragedy. Not evil, not hatred, not even greed. Just deferral. The soft assumption that goodness was already handled, that help was on its way, that someone, somewhere, must have taken care of it. So we stood back, we clapped, we shared the video, we nodded at the promise, and then we turned away. Because heroes don't need checking up on, because the photo looked convincing, because my voice trembled just right on live television. But while we congratulated ourselves on believing in something beautiful, a boy died. His name was Ethan Brooks, 8 years old, heart too fragile, eyes too quiet, and he believed, more than any of us, that help was coming, because I told him it was. I looked into the camera, with every spotlight fixed on me, and I said the words that made the world exhale. I've got it handled. And so no one else helped, because I said I would, because they wanted to believe I was enough, and because belief is easier than responsibility. Rachel didn't ask for miracles. She asked for a reply, for a signature, for follow-through. She asked gently, repeatedly, until asking became begging. And then silence. Her silence. My silence. Our silence. It formed the walls around Ethan's final hours. You think stories like this are rare, that they only happen in documentaries and tragedies far removed from your scrolling feed. But they're not rare. They're invisible. Because every time we celebrate the symbol, we neglect the substance. Every time we clap for the pledge, we forget to follow the action. Every time we say, "That's amazing," we assume the work is done. And every time we do, a child waits, a family fades, a lie thrives. I once told myself I made a mistake, that I meant to help, that I got busy, that my team dropped the ball. But no, I made a decision to look generous instead of being generous, to perform concern instead of feeling it, to be loved rather than to love. And now I've come to the last room, the last chair, the final silence. There's no spotlight here, no camera, only this pen, this paper, and the weight of 13 unanswered messages. I've written this not as an appeal, but a confession, not to restore my image, but to destroy it fully. Because nothing good should ever grow from this lie again. Not a career, not a statue, not even a story. If someone reads this, if anyone still remembers, don't remember me. Remember him. Remember the boy who drew hearts with wings, who waited beside a plastic-covered window, who asked if I had forgotten. Remember that he never needed a monument, only a response. I used to end speeches with dramatic lines, something bold, something hopeful. I have none of that now, only this. If you think someone else will help, they won't. Not unless you do. Ethan, I failed you, but maybe this truth will reach someone you deserved. Maybe they'll be better than I was. Maybe they'll hear the silence and not wait for applause to break it. Goodbye. Thanks for watching the whole video. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting stories.